Hello, it's Andrew Eborn here, and welcome to another edition of the Andrew Eborn Show. Those little bite-sized segments where we try and update you on things that we've done in the programme beforehand. And one of my former guests, a regular in fact, is Jonathan Hansler. How are you doing, Jonathan?
I'm okay, my friend. I'm okay. Yeah,
Isn't it? Because last time we spoke on the show, when we were in a big studio and doing all sorts of exciting things, we were talking about a villain in Tinseltown, what your wonderful one-man play you're going to do about George Sanders. Obviously, this has now been postponed because of lockdown restrictions. Talk to me about what's happened.
Well, basically, we have the set up at the White Bear. It's ready to go, and it's an incredibly, it's a costly enterprise to say the least. But the set is, in my mind, looks fantastic. The show needs a little bit of tweaking because we've had a bit of a break, so I need to come back into it again. But it's rather like, I feel rather like a racehorse wandering around a paddock, with a trainer. And just the grass is soaking wet and I can't race until it's ready, or whatever it is. I don't suit the grass at the moment, so we can't open the show. So, it is in that situation. And of course, that will happen the minute we get to a period when they suddenly go down to tier 2 again, then I'm on. But who knows when that's going to be? And then I've got other things coming in, so who knows?
The White Bear themselves have said that yours will be the first production when they are.
It has to be, because the set it costs us a bloody fortune to move it. We've done a little trailer, which we're waiting to see how that works out, which is done we only had one day in there to shoot it. But of course, then it just went into lockdown on the 16th, and then the 18th. We were in there on the 16th. The announcement was on the 16th. We knew that we weren't going on, which was sad, of course. But we realised that we could make the most of it by shooting a trailer in the trailer, because it's a trailer. So why not shoot a trailer in a trailer? Because it's set in a trailer in 1958 in Spain, and it's it looks like a very cheesy, George doesn't want to be there, a really cheesy Marilyn Monroe-ish pink sofas. The Spanish have really decked this place out for a star, but kind of the wrong kind of star, because George doesn't even see himself as a star. Yeah. He's just a jobbing actor who does a job, picks up a paycheck. What?
We touched on this last time, didn't we? He was the antithesis, if you like, of being
absolutely,
even though he was a massive talent. He hated it, didn't he? He hated the profession. He hated all the trappings of it. He just wanted to get on with it, didn't he?
I think if he could have found, perhaps like I'm finding at the moment, and yet he was finding that. The interesting thing is there's a book that I bring on, which at the time was very controversial, because it's all kind of a little bit like what I'm talking about now, about how we have to understand our inner soul before we can understand our outer soul. We need the inner or the outer. And he had this book in his hands, and yet, but the trouble was, he was so far deep. I think it's Macbeth who says, I'm in blood steeped so far that I would not, basically saying I couldn't go back. I have to go forward. And that's what George is almost saying. He says, look, I'm trapped. I can't do anything. Yes, he's in a wonderful job. More people would kill to do what he was doing. I know he's in Hollywood. He's a well-paid star. But he just sees the plasticness of it all. And he can't escape the fabrication and the fakery and the triviality of it all. And, he is stuck. And that's why I think alcohol comes, and this is why drugs come. This is because people cannot see the real beauty of what life is.
Yeah, and we always say that history repeats itself because people don't learn the lessons from history. Talk to me. He was a very twisted individual. He was a twisted soul. He had his
definitely tortured soul. Yeah,
definitely tortured. But an amazing talent, and I think it's looking at that sort of talent just because he was almost an unrecognized star, if you like, because people now don't really know the name George Sanders.
Nobody does.
Remind us of some of his work. Obviously, the voice of Shere Khan.
Voice of Shere Khan. Of course, All About Eve was, probably his most. He calls it his he said, I got an Oscar for my performance in All About Eve, which I suppose makes this film the high point of my career. If I sound doubtful about it, it's because Oscars, for which so many actors and actresses pine and scheme, are really a mixed blessing. I was very grateful and flattered to receive mine, but apart from making my already large ego one size larger, it did absolutely nothing for me. It's generally imagined that when one receives an Academy Award, one's salary shoots up. From personal experience, I have to report this is not so. The truth of the matter is that while Hollywood admires people who win Oscars, it employs people who make money. And to be able to do one does not necessarily mean that you can do the other. So, you know, it is that absolute sense of like, I'm sorry, but this is absolutely a machine. I'm part of a machine. I'm fabricated. I'm like a robot doing the same old shit. They've decided to make me a villain. Okay, I'm going to be a villain. But, you know, it's like, it's a real, you know, but you can see inside him this way. And it was interesting because there were people who, it was said by Angela Lansbury. She said, George was wonderful. I worked with him. And yet he is portrayed as a woman hater. He's portrayed as a misogynist. This is only because he played up to the press. He was, in a way, his own worst enemy, because he literally said, well, if you're going to treat me like that, now I'm going to treat you like the fucking idiots that you are. And I will play a womanizer, woman hater. And if you believe me to be so, and if the public believe me to be so, then let it be. I shall just be that. But in fact, as Angela Lansbury, he was absolutely adorable to work with, a lovely, lovely man. But she said, unfortunately, the thing about George was that he had an intellectual speed that nobody could catch up with. And I understand that, not saying that I'm the world's greatest intellect or anything like that, but I know my brain is very fast. I wouldn't have played people like Peter Cook or John Cleese in Fawlty Towers and of course, George, if I didn't have a very speeding mind or a quick brain, which sometimes I believe is too fast for this world almost, which is possibly why I'm training it through meditation and getting rid of because my imagination is so speedy and so quick and so fast. You know, writing Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, writing a whole play with Clive, you know, having a knowledge of British comedy like I do, and an admiration for the people perhaps who are the most like one of my heroes is Alec Guinness, I think, who was another great, great talent. Yes, he was recognized, but there's a line in Lawrence of Arabia where he calls something the brightness. And the brightness is if you like, it's something that certain people have, but others don't. And that is a sort of thing that they are too bright for the world themselves. That's why I think so many people are dead. It's even rock stars, you can call it many people. It doesn't have to be drugs. It can be many different things, but they shine too brightly for the world.
And you think, so in a way, you're saying that George Sand was sort of playing up to the image. He sort of did his own media manipulation. If they were going to cast him as the villain in Tinseltown, the name of your play, he was going to play up to that character.
Absolutely. Yeah. He played people like the fools they were.
Right.
You know, he didn't suffer fools. And I think there's a great truth in that. You know, he didn't suffer any fools. He just couldn't bear bullshit. He hated Hollywood parties. There's this whole story about Zsa Zsa Gabor. He had his standing, you know, he said that he was like basically a guest. He was married to her, but he felt like a guest at one of her parties, and not a guest even. He was a servant, because he's an Oscar winner. He'd stand under a large photograph of Zsa Zsa Gabor and serve drinks to all these pricks who are milling around, you know, sort of whoever they were. And he's a massive star. You know, and there he is, like a servant. He wasn't even allowed. Sorry, Andrew. He wasn't even allowed a proper room. He had this room, right, to store his stuff. But as soon as she got loads of photographs and press clippings, he was ousted out of there. God knows where he was living. You know, perhaps he was living in a hat, you know, in a tiny cupboard somewhere. He was literally, you know, man. Some of the stories are so funny, But
you're right. It's just in the way that they do that sort of the comedy and the tragedy mask. There are two sides of it, and you can either work on that basis where you weep about the tragedy, and as you say, he was a very tortured soul. But there is a lot of humor in that, and a lot of the characters that you play, are those people they are the tortured souls who discussed.
Yeah, they are. I don't want to go too much on this one, because yes, I know I do play it, but I play a lot of other people as well. So it's not just tortured souls. I mean, that's one side of my coin, and up for many, many years, because I was an alcoholic, of course it would be. But in sobriety now, one of the great things I played was not a tortured soul. I played in a film called Give Them Wings, which is on its way out, which I'm really proud of.
Great film,
which has actually already been nominated, which was already won a Best Feature award in an Oscar. One of those film festivals that can qualify for Oscar running.
The wonderful Toya Wilcox in it as well.
With Toya Wilcox and Bill Fellows, who does so much. But I play a kind of heroic figure in that, and it's really the comedy of the film. Myself and Deborah Stevenson, who is with John Colshaw in the Impression Show, she and me are kind of the comedy of the film, if you like, the lightness, but because we become the sort of the Gandalf, with a kind of Gandalf and wife. That should be a sitcom. Gandalf and wife of the show, and so it's totally different to the sort of parts I have played, where a bit like Sanders in many ways, where I'm very much at ease because they are, or ill at ease, if you like. But he's got a very great heart and a very great soul, and that's a lovely part to play. So not always do I take those roles, and it's actually quite refreshing not to play,
And
the next one, I've been asked to play an alcoholic in a thing about
another film. Talk to me just a little bit about that then, because when you're playing something so close to home, how do you cope afterwards? Because it's obviously bringing back dark memories for you.
Well, this is where meditation comes in, doesn't it? And this is where, when you learn to meditate, and you can take that stuff away, and you can just go, okay, that's a day. I'm just going to go back and just get myself back in my head again. All right, let's get rid of those things and that sort of thoughts and things like that. And sometimes I don't use necessarily my own childhood. I've kind of stopped to do that because I think sometimes it doesn't serve you as well as you think it did. I try not to use those particular memories. If I'm playing an alcoholic, which is the next role that I'm doing, certainly there will be times when I will use not the darkest memories, but certain moments, probably when I was a bit drunk or something like that. I'll bring that back, or I'll think of other people who played alcoholics, Richard Burton, for example, who was one, how they behaved and like he did in, I think it was Virginia Woolf, he plays an alcoholic husband in that. And there's, of course, Educating Rita, Michael Caine's performance in that. So, there are things that you can take from people. So it doesn't have to always be your own business, man. You can use other people's brains and other people's thoughts.
Right. Well, good luck with whenever it may be available for people to come and see. If they want details, how do they get them?
Well, just go to thewhitebear.co.uk. Whenever it opens, it opens. Well, that's all I can say.
Fantastic. Well, good luck with that. You will keep us posted. But for now, Jonathan Hansler,
thanks, Andrew.
Be my guest. Take care.
Good one.
Bye-bye.
Good one. Bye.